first open 1999, the state of Selling Royal Sepang Acres, close to Fizzy Hub of the KO. Now ahead of an hour-long practice next live. MotoGP. Magnificent Sepang in 1999. Our 25th time of racing in this part of magnificent Malaysia. It packs a punch as well. Does Sepang. Heat and humidity and a fast and flowing layout makes it one of the most demanding calendar. Turn 7 caught out Alex Marquez this morning in F1 session, which concluded in very, very wet conditions. Dry though as it stands as we head into the crucial practice session. Good afternoon and welcome back to what, as you can see from these live pictures, is a rather overcast and rather cloudy Kuala Lumpur. It's the Grand Prix of Malaysia, 20th round of our record-breaking 22 round of campaign, just 2 to go after this Malaysian Grand Prix over in Portimao and in Valencia. All eyes on the skies in some respects as we head into this crucial 60-minute practice session for the MotoGP field. Of course, it will be deciding the automatic 10 places in tomorrow morning's Q2 session, before we go sprinting over 10 laps in the TSO sprint tomorrow afternoon at 3 PM local time. Vital prep work to be completed at what we hope will be a full dry 20-lap Grand Prix here. There's a bit of a breeze blowing up. Sprawls across a massive area neighbouring the Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Doing his best start to a MotoGP weekend. First time we've seen the Grazini racing rider lead an FP1 session. It was a rain-disrupted session this morning, but when it was dry, out the gate with a 2:00.199, led home. Double world champion Pecco Bagnaia. 2 factory Hondas inside the top 6. Tranmere 3rd, Luca Marini 6th. Marco Bezzecchi, who has topped the Friday action in our last 3 Grand Prix, was 5th fastest behind the impressive Paul Espargo. Alex Marquez 7th despite his crash at turn 7. Fabio Quartararo, Jack Miller, who was also a fall this morning at turn 15, and Pedro Acosta rounding out your top 10. Work to do for the likes of Morbidelli, Brad Binder, Iagua just outside that top 10 this morning. Fabio Di Gianantonio, fresh off the back of his brilliant second place in Phillip Island 5 days ago. He was 17th fastest on the Pertamina Enduro Ducati. Alex Rins, who's been shining of late on the factory Yamaha as well, was down in 18th spot, 1 place ahead of our Phillip Island winner and our latest MotoGP winner. What is turning out to be a rather unpredictable conclusion in 2025. Ralph Fernandez, of course, in our Australian Grand Prix. 7th different winner in 2025, 5 different winners in the last 5 Grand Prix. That winning tally of 7 different riders, only 2 shy of our record of 9 in 2016 and in 2020. Of course, from Luca Marini, a couple of the big names that are still winless in MotoGP. Acosta was 10th this morning. Off in the second corner. Sturman Aldeguer that made the front running before the heavens opened. It's a Sepang International Circuit. Cold lashing from some very heavy rain towards the tail end of this FP1 this morning. Barry Lewis will be in the commentary box talking you through all of this crucial practice session this afternoon with Jack Applegard in what at the moment is a dry pit lane. Not sure how much longer we'll be saying that because there are some threatening grey clouds off into the distance. But Aldeguer for the first time in MotoGP leading the field at the end of the opening session.
He got in just before the deluge arrived in MotoGP FP1 earlier on today. Owen Aldeguer, this was him in dry conditions before the mother of all downpours brought an end to our morning's entertainment. Owen Aldeguer leading Pecco Bagnaia, MotoGP 24 leading something in the middle of a 24 and 25, depending on what you consider Pecco Bagnaia's fight to be. Not the worst morning, as we said, for Bagnaia in second place, although once again he wasn't cutting the happiest of figures when he returned to the Ducati box, to near third on a factory Honda, which this man Malaysian has certainly had his fair share in developing.
A start to a Grand Prix weekend for Mia in well over 2 years. Portimao 2023, the last time we saw Mia inside the top three. After the opening salvo of the Grand Prix weekend, he has hobbled it over from his European base in Andorra. Here this weekend, Aleix Espargaro, who has done quite a lot of testing recently here in Sepang on that vastly improved and updated RC213B. As mentioned, both factory Hondas fighting inside the top six this morning. Mia third with a 2:00.548. And Marini, his Honda HRC Castrol colleague, in sixth place. He did a 2:00.602. It was quite tight behind Aldeguer. Aldeguer had quite a big buffer before the rain came. He was over a quarter of a second clear of anybody else around this 5.5-kilometre Sepang circuit.
Good to know really what we can truly learn from what we saw earlier on in pre-practice one. See any riders go for new tyres at the end because the rain put paid to any hopes of that happening. As one of our young fans points to a Ducati bike which Pecco Bagnaia, not that particular model, but Pecco Bagnaia hasn't particularly enjoyed riding recently as he gives his wave of support to that particular fan who has come to see his hero win, which he has in two of his last three visits here.
The model Bagnaia machine got a bit more stability than the real thing. Out on circuit, we saw so many issues in Mandalika and Phillip Island lately, didn't we? Certainly not lacking support though here, is he? On the outskirts of Kuala Lumpur. Plenty of Pecco Bagnaia fans. A message from his wife, of course, Domitia Castagnini, to rise again. First must know how to suffer. I think it's fair to say the 63 has been suffering quite a lot throughout 2025. Hassan a supporting role in the factory Ducati garage for so much of this year by Marc Marquez. Of course, sadly, is missing now for the remainder of the 2025 World Championship campaign. Turn here for pre-season testing in February. Well, front and centre is she, Domitia. Always in the background, though, supporting her man. Always a constant companion at Bagnaia's side. He has needed that support network to keep a smile on his face after some really difficult Grand Prix of late. Mandalika was a horror show 7 days after what was a brilliant performance from Pecco in Motegi. And this, unfortunately, the latest in a series of setbacks. This is when Pecco clawed his way back into the top 10 in Phillip Island last weekend. It was a very familiar story. As soon as that rear tyre kicked back in line, it chucked a load of weight over the front end of that GP25 and sent it crewing into the cover trap at Siberia. Back-to-back DNFs now for Bagnaia for the first time Sunday Grand Prix in 3.5 years.
It's the good news. If you're looking for it, you do have to look hard. But Pecco Bagnaia, point 2 in Australia, is that at least he was somewhat competitive in the race in Australia. Of course, having to come from a long way down the field. He'd already qualified podium and had a 3-place group penalty added onto that. Who got in this man's way. Marco Bezzecchi in qualifying. They stiffened the bike up at Ducati, which certainly cured some of his instability issues, but did make the bike very, very heavy to ride in the race itself. And Bagnaia dropping out with around 4 laps still to go.
Fastest on Friday in Japan, fastest on Friday in Mandalika, and fastest on Friday in Australia. There's light year. Is it going to be light years ahead of the opposition once again here on Friday afternoon? That is a brilliant slogan, isn't it? For some of the Malaysian fans, I like that a lot. There's light year. Chapeau. That is superb work. I'm doffing my cap in the commentary box here. I'm loving the work of those fans. Yeah, as I mentioned, can Bezzecchi then lock out every single Friday on our overseas tour as we get set for action, engines firing into life. Plenty of riders might be keen to get on with business here in this 16th session. With the threat of rain looming on the horizon, you might see just a few banker early time attacks lodged here. Last time I checked my weather radars on my weather app, which I have to say has a tendency to be rather unreliable throughout 2025. The next time we're expecting rain in this part of Malaysia was around 5 p.m. local time. So despite the delay after the all was dropped from the earlier Age Talent Cup practice session, we might actually just about get away with it. Fingers crossed here in the commentary box.
Don't play games with the weather in this part of the world, because when it does rain, it comes down by the ocean fault. So get your lap time on the board early. We'll see what kind of tyres everyone is out there on. because of what compounds they're running. Everyone who's had the pit lane so far has got a soft front and rear. There was very little opportunity earlier on this morning to understand much at all about the tyre options that Michelin have brought here this weekend. As we saw at the end of the practice session earlier on today in pre-practice, when it does rain to the kind of quantity we saw earlier on today, the track is essentially too drinks to do any kind of running.
A new experience for Raul Fernandez, coming to a MotoGP race now as a Premier Class winner. Although the formula does not suggest that he might be backing that Phillip Island success up here this weekend in Malaysia. Sadly, the 25-year-old recently turned at 25, the number 25, has not scored a single point in the last two sprints and last two Grand Prix here in Malaysia. Fabio Quartararo, well, he's popular wherever we go in the world, isn't he? El Diablo. A brilliant pole position, a breathtaking pole position in Phillip Island. He's delivered a few of them already so far in 2025 as Quartararo, but you have to say both his sprint and Grand Prix were very underwhelming, to say the least. A slump from pole position to 7th in the sprint for Quartararo. It's even worse in the main Grand Prix. First, 11 in that 27 lap battle in Phillip Island, not what Quartararo was expecting at all. So he couldn't stop the M1, couldn't carry any corner speed on the wide M1. You know, Fabio is a bit of a training machine, he's a bit of a treadmill fanatic, isn't he? Basically cancelled all the training programs and switched off, went to Singapore for a 3-day break after Australia, recharged batteries. I think it's fair to say as well and truly hit the reset button coming to Sepang.
17 seconds behind at the checkered flag last time out. Some early issues or just a delay getting underway? Looks like the latter for Van Meer in the factory Honda box, so we'll be seeing him join the action very shortly. But every single rider now, with Mir about to complete the grid, have been out there, soft front, soft rear tyres for front of this minute practice session. As always, top 10 at the end of it, they'll be booking their place through into qualifying 2.
Moto3 winner here in the past is Joan Mir. Recorded his 10th winner of that incredible 2017 campaign. His form has completely inserted Mo in MotoGP. He has not scored a point here in Sepang since 2019. DNFs in the last 2 years. A rapidly increasing DNF tally in 2025 was added to, unfortunately, last time out in Phillip Island for Mir. So he suffered big time with some ballooning front tyre temperature issues. And unfortunately, Australia is 12th DNF in the over 19 Grand Prix. Across his HRC career now, Joan Mir, fingers and ears if you're a fan of the 36. 43 DNFs at HRC as Pedro Acosta. Well, he made a very early mistake this morning in a dry FP1 session, and he has made the carbon copy move once again, not the same corner, but it's very early on then that Acosta has dropped the ball on the factory KTM.
Wasn't exactly put together for running either. Another front-end washout in a slow hairpin for Acosta, so that is 2 very slow front-end crashes for Pedro Acosta in the space of 2 sessions. Fortunately, he is now back up and running.
Well, he's got that KTM RC16 back upright and heading back to the pits. Now, we just mentioned it with Malaysian Spargo's hot-footed it over from his European base in Andorra. Of course, doing so much sterling work behind the scenes to get the Honda RT213V competitive once again. I'd like to say hello to Joy, Jack, guys.
Yeah, good afternoon to everybody from, thankfully, a dry pit lane for now. As you say, like, I think you only arrived in Malaysia this morning, am I right? So, how's the jet lag? Survived so far? Yeah, this is my third visit in Malaysia in the last 3 weeks. Still a few more coming, so yeah, obviously we have a very busy program. I will test next week, so I will try to keep on with the garage, you know, to keep learning and to understand how is the weekend for them. So like this, I can test better, and obviously it's always good to hear from you in live. As you say, you've done many laps here. I imagine that's given Honda a great opportunity this weekend. From the laps you've done on this updated RT213V, do you think the guys are going to be competitive? Yeah, for sure. I mean, hopefully they can be competitive as races. I mean, from Japan we saw very competitive both bikes on top always. They are missing some more podiums, but I think Juan and Luca are very strong. Especially Luca is always there in every session, so I think it's clear the progress that we have made. And yeah, this track I think quite good, the Honda. During the test was good. We had a lot of info, so
hopefully they can good for them and they can do a good race.
From the start of the year when we were last here in February to now, it feels like this bike is taking a huge leap forward. I mean, look at how competitive it is now compared to where they were at the start of the year. You must be really proud of all the work that everyone has been doing behind the scenes.
Yeah, I'm very proud. When I arrived here, I knew that this was a big brand, but it was a bit of chaos, you know. So from the beginning, we did a solid job. I have to say that this team is really competitive, more than what I expect. And Joan and Luca are very motivated. When you see that the Red Bulls are coming and the bike is improving,
The target is to win races.
But now we can touch with the hand, we can touch with the finger.
Just finally, you mentioned you're going to be back here for another test before the end of the year. What else have you got planned for control the 2025? Is a couple of Kevin riders or Golden riders that they want me to test, and also
new part. 26 is around the corner. So basically we are starting already to test with the 26 bike.
promising. I have to say that the bike is very competitive, and hopefully. Thanks for being here. Thank you.
You're always great to hear the thoughts of Malaysia Spargo, who has spent so much time in 2025 in Sepang. He might be eligible for Malaysian residency the way he's going at Old Alaish. Good to see him back then. He'll be back on circuit on the RT213V next week. Already working on the 2026 prototype. And then a long overdue victory, aren't they? Honda, of course, have been victorious over the last couple of years. Alex Fried and Johan Zarco for LCR Honda. The factory Honda squad, though, has not won now in over 4 years, which is an incredible stat, isn't it? Marc Marquez, when he won the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix in 2021, the last time we saw a factory Honda rider victorious in MotoGP. Maybe this weekend could be the time for Honda to strike back.
Signs are there that the good times are rolling back towards HRC again, although evidence gets in Australia he can go. Still how much they still got to go. Truly be competitive with the very best in MotoGP in all conditions, just not quite turning as well around the fast corners. All for the firing for Neil and Luca Marini's liking. Well, I said months ago that it was able to go truly what to learn this morning, but at the moment we do have the same top three this afternoon. It's Aldeguer, Bagnaia and Mir. Your 1, 2, 3. We're already, understandably, a couple of seconds quicker than we were earlier on today. We were not inside the 2-minute mark earlier on today. We're now in the low 58 with Fermin Aldeguer. The black record around here, Luca Bagnaia in that incredible Q2 session when he went head-to-head with Jorge Martin last year is a 56.3.
That's putting in some more crucial development miles on what will be the new V4 powered Weisstein 1 in 2026. Is this the early journey, the start of Yamaha? Hopefully they will believe keeping Quartararo with the Iwata factory beyond next season, because the Quartararo camp are already making noise of some discontent about the lack of tangible progress throughout 2025. You do feel that in terms of the battle between the two Japanese factories, it has been Honda that have got the jump on Yamaha over the majority of 2025. What shot that is, the side-on shot coming out the final corner. That gives you such an incredible insight into sort of ride-high devices, picking up the acceleration grip out of that final corner. Incredible that, wasn't it? To see how low that V4 engine was, the V4 powered M1 was sitting on that rear tyre. How's Augusto getting on at the moment? A 2:00.779. He's picked up 2.2 seconds. Of course, one rider's been doing so much work on the V4 behind the scenes as well as Andrea Dovizioso. He was part of that race 10 years ago, back in 2015. He wasn't actually too far behind that battle between 93 and 46. Although when he was asked about it, a special documentary has been released this week, Sepang Live, which you can catch across all of our social media channels. I think he took the Fifth Amendment, didn't he, Dom? He was like, I'm not getting involved. I'm not playing the old blame game. I'm happy just to sit this one out. I'll sit on the fence. Thank you very much.
I guess we'll never really truly settle on that particular incident in MotoGP history, which will be part of MotoGP folklore, for better or for worse. It has made MotoGP what it is. It's a shame that Marc Marquez isn't here this weekend, not because of the anniversary, of course, of what happened in 2015, but because we're missing the world champion doing world champion things. If you didn't see the news overnight last night back in Europe, or late yesterday evening here in Malaysia, Marc Marquez's 2025 season is over. The lap one collision with Marco Bezzecchi, the damage to his shoulder in Indonesia. There was some faint hope that we might see Marc Marquez before 2025 was over. Those faint hopes were extinguished yesterday. We won't see Marc Marquez in Portimao or in Valencia, nor in the Grand Prix, nor in the test, with Nicolo Buliga potentially lined up to take his place.
February the 3rd, 2026, the next time we'll see Marc Marquez turn a wheel in anger on a factory Ducati. Latest news from Ducati and from the 93 himself was, and from his medical team in Madrid, he has to have a further 4-week period of immobilisation on that right arm. It's going to be another long and painstaking winter rehab as far as the 32-year-old Spaniard is concerned. Nobody knows, do they, more about the highs and lows of Grand Prix motorcycle racing than Marc. You'd have to have a heart of stone to not feel sorry for him. 7 days after winning that elusive 9th world title, 7th in MotoGP, leaned out through no fault of his own in that Mandalika battle, and now, as we mentioned, facing yet another long off-season recovery as Fabio Quartararo once again looking a little bit agitated, a little bit frustrated.
Yeah, testing in pre-season went very well for Yamaha here, and then went to Borough, and Fabio Quartararo realised that perhaps the Yamaha wasn't as strong and competitive as he thought at the end of a week's load of testing here, where they ran in the shakedown. Of course, with 3 days of pre-season testing, they ended up as the nearest challengers to Ducati at the end of that test. That, of course, has since changed, with Aprilia really stepping forward as the nearest challengers to the Bologna Bullets, and as the leading Aprilia doing the Moto sessions. Marco Bezzecchi in 7th place on a 158.91 to the young Aprilia up inside the top 10 at the moment. Said earlier on this weekend in gear, up and said earlier on this morning too, if Aprilia are competitive versus Ducati here, then we know their challenge is serious.
But one thing that Fabio Quartararo and co at Yamaha have been begging for, they've been pleading for this V4 to deliver, is a few ponies, a bit of horsepower. Now we know in the early part of this development process, hasn't exactly been a massive step forward in that department. Let's look at the speed charts here as the Sonkiat Chantra goes into the double trap at turn 15. Augusto Fernandez on the V4 M1 is actually the slowest bike through the speed traps. Just for reference, 10k down on what we know is a rocket ship, a KTM, which at the moment is leading the way in the hands of Bastianini. 336.4 kilometres. KTM has blitzed the speed gun. Augusto Fernandez over 10k's down that V4 Yamaha. 326.2 kilometres an hour. Now Yamaha have promised, as this development process continues, it's very much an ongoing process, and they will be able to add more horsepower to that V4. Based on the evidence we saw in Misano and so far here in Sepang, they're going to need it.
And it would appear as well that they're perhaps not running the current iteration, the current engine at its maximum ability either for reliability purposes. You might recall back in Misano, one of those V4s did expire on Augusto Fernandez's bike. He had some mechanical issues through the weekend, in addition to a crash or two as well. Testing up on his side, but it's a very different challenge, very different program, running the motorcycle in competitive race conditions. When you have the benefit of testing, you can do exactly what you want. You're not focused on the actual track sessions, because you've got more track time available to you over a course of a full day, rather than perhaps 2 45 or a 45 and a 60-minute section as we have on a Friday in MotoGP. So very different challenge that you're faced with from within the box, in terms of the changes you make to the bike, in terms of the general program for a session, from a competitive session than you would have on a race weekend. So certainly more to come from that V4, but they need to put it through its paces in these kind of scenarios, around these kind of circuits, to truly understand what that bike is capable of.
I still want to see Tankei with speed charts on what is a brand new concept motorcycle designed for one key reason, to have a whole more top speed and horsepower. Yellow flags out in sector 4. We'll go down to Jack very, very shortly. We'll try and find out who is off circuit in that final corner at turn 50. It's obviously just a run off. The yellow flags have quickly cleared, as you can see on the graphic. Jack and Fabio Quartararo are there, because he didn't look too happy with life when he came back into the garage.
Yeah, and that's putting it kindly as well. And incredibly exasperated Fabio Quartararo in the back of the box. Was a solid 2 minutes just talking track map and describing every single problem he's having. He was not happy in any way whatsoever. He took his headphones off, threw them off to the right-hand side, and rider coach Julian Simon had to come in and almost calm him down to say, look, there's still 45 minutes of tension remaining. All he's not lost just yet, but you can just tell there's real tension, real frustration to Quartararo. Any opportunity when he comes to us lately, he's piling the pressure on Yamaha to say, you have to come up with a solid motorcycle for me in November at the Valencia test. When we're back here in February, otherwise I'm going to explore other avenues. It feels as though Yamaha are fighting a losing battle to try and keep Quartararo on side at the moment, even despite their efforts with this new V4.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack, for those observations outside the factory Yamaha garage. There's an enormous amount of pressure on those Iwata engineers, led of course now by Max Bartolini, coach from the factory Ducati squad, the so long right-hand man to Gigi Dall'Igna in the Borgo Panigale factory garage. Yeah, there's pressure building day by day as Quartararo's frustrations come to the surface once again. They don't have much time today to convince Fabio Quartararo. There'll be a lot of teams and riders looking to get some business done early in 2026 as we look towards the new 850cc engine capacity era and the new product tyre era in 2027. Well, Yamaha's got to crack on with this new V4. They have to show something very early, well, in the latter part of 2025 and early in 2026 if they're going to do anything to convince Quartararo to stay, because he's made no bones about it. He's going to be happy to clear off and find another opportunity if that's required.
Valencia test is 25 days away, and you feel that is a crucial day. Fabio Quartararo will want signs of tangible progress on board that inline 4 M1. Of course, he'll jump across to the V4 as Joan Mir is hop skipping and jumping his way into turn number 1. Mir currently the nearest challenger to your pace setter, Fermin Aldeguer.
That's how you save the rear tyre in Sepang. That's not how you're supposed to stop on a GP bike, Joan. Ideally, you want the rear tyre helping you stop with the front tyre as well as you break into that first corner. Yeah, HRC, Mir's crew, bit of a smile as they look up at the big screens inside the Honda garage. We saw Joan Mir, didn't we, wrestling that RC 213 around that sensational podium we were taking a few weeks ago. He really does wring the neck of that Honda as Pedro Acosta then back out on circuit after his early tip-off at turn 9. As yet to see a lap time registered by the Spaniard. Well, 23 riders on circuit here this weekend with the addition of Augusto Fernandez, V4 Yamaha. We are sadly missing Maverick Vinales, Boy Martin and Marc Marquez, but as was the case in qualifying last time out, they are all replaced by Michele Pirro at Ducati, Lorenzo Savadori at Aprilia, Paul Espargaro doing such a brilliant job once again standing in for Maverick Vinales. Paul Espargaro once again sticking his nose in that fight for the top 10. How does he keep doing it? Part-time racer, isn't he, Paul Espargaro, the fastest TV pundit in the world, and once again inside that top 10 super.
As we saw at the end of play last Friday in for the pilot, Paul Espargaro the leading KTM. Of course, that could still change as we go through the afternoon. Savadori too, of course, the very busy test rider, perhaps with as much time racing this year as testing, of course, with the various injuries that Jorge Martinez had. Savadori hasn't escaped the injury curse either. Of course, he had that big crash, the front end stopping that he performed. He was trying to avoid Brad Binder in qualifying 1 last weekend, and let's say that Savadori was racing in quite a bit of pain on the Sunday afternoon in Phillip Island, and eventually get himself to the checkered flag in 16th place, but quite a bit of pain while doing so.
Never had a top 6 in a Malaysian Grand Prix previously. So that record's most likely to change here this weekend, particularly if Marco Bezzecchi has anything to say about it. And likewise, Raul Fernandez, the Australian Grand Prix winner. Well, 2 riders at the moment, well, 3 riders really, are catching the eye, aren't we? It's the same top 3 from this morning. It's a slightly different order. Fermin Aldeguer, though, who really is cashing in on the 6 days of testing he had here pre-season. Of course, he was eligible for the rookies test and then took part in the full 3-day official test here in Sepang. So of all the circuits he's come to in his rookie campaign, in terms of experience on a MotoGP bike, well, Aldeguer has with the most coming into this Sepang weekend. He is capitalising at 58.279, still season lead away. Joan Mir, third this morning, second so far this afternoon. on the factory Honda. But Pecco Bagnaia once again inside the top three. Well, Jack's been keeping a close eye on a frustrated Fabio Quartararo outside the factory Yamaha garage. Let's get some thoughts from deep inside the heart of the Iwata garage, as I'd like to say, Massimo Meregali joins Jack now down in pit lane.
Yeah, as you say, crucial period for Yamaha, the Valencia test, only 25 days away now. The V4 once again on track. Mayo, this period before the end of the season, how important is it for the future of Yamaha, do you feel?
It's just like another period we are working on bike. Sure, now the track conditions are not helping us, you know, when there is nothing for us. The same problem. The ability to go to stop the bike. We have to wait. So we'll see for other.
You hear Fabio speaking ahead of the weekend saying, I need a bike next year that I can be in the top 5 in every sector. I need to make my decision with regards to my future at the start of the season. What would that do to the atmosphere within the box?
Nothing changed. There is just job. We are really committed to try to find team that we would like to be. Proving the commitment that we have. The bike, try to get information about it. Here, and we are just committed. It's not to say now to be in 2 months. Just following the plan, and for sure we about the job in front of us.
When we spoke to in Misano, when the V4 debuted, you said that the idea was to wildcard here and then again in Valencia. Is that still the plan for Augusto?
Yeah. This race at the beginning was not in our plan, but we really want to wildcard in a really condition. Just to the next will be Valencia.
As I mentioned, 25 days. I know that Yamaha are likely going to wait for a big PR to say we're going to run the V4 next year, but surely 25 days from now we're going to see the V4 in the hands of Fabio and Alex. That looks like it's the direction for you guys.
Valencia, our rider will have one before the
Thanks, Jack. Thanks to factory Yamaha boss Massimo Meregali. Trying to calm the waters, no rear grip out on circuit. He said every rider is chasing their tail in that department. A fair point actually by Meregali. Long way off the all-time lap record. 2 seconds pretty much off that best pace, and these are conditions that are conducive to fast lap period in Sepang with this heavy cloud cover. Probably about as cool as it's going to get. Malaysia was certainly cool here yesterday. The build up to this 20th round of 2025 as we pick up Bagnaia. It was there, wasn't it, last year? Epic battle with Jorge Martin, where there was close contact between those two in that startling start to Sepang 2024. Bagnaia at the moment still in P3 with a 158.615.
Never tire walking those first 4 or 5 laps of last year's Malaysian Grand Prix. Pecco Bagnaia did what he had to do, but unfortunately for him, the sprint crash the day before had done too much damage already for him to still retain his world title. It's 2 world championships rather than 3 for Pecco Bagnaia in MotoGP. Reference the cloud cover we have here, directly outside our Contrux window, looking out the back of the circuit. There is some heavy cloud cover, some black clouds that we did see come over the circuit earlier on this morning and dump that monsoon on our heads. Just hoping, looking at where the clouds are at the moment off into the distance, and they might just pass around the back of the circuit. If they do hit the circuit, they're going to hit around turns 7 and 8.
Speed wobble there. Are there more stability issues for Bagnaia as he got on the gas in the factory? Ducati coming out of turn 14, second geared through there about 80 kilometres an hour and dives into the pit lane, does Pecco. He's having a look at some well-worn soft front, soft rear rubber here in Nick Michelin. With Gigi Delinia. Look, I'm sure so many of us in and out of the paddock have been just wondering what on earth has been going on with Bagnaia, particularly on this flyway sequence. Zano was a bit of a headed on the overseas tour. Taggy, well, that was brilliant. Mandalika and Australia have been absolutely disastrous as far as the 63 is concerned. Back down into the seats alongside Christian Gavarini and Gigi Delinia, and starts yet another debrief. With that threatening cloud cover off the distance, you do wonder whether very, very shortly as we come to the halfway point of this session, we might get some early time attacks coming in. There's the wobble. There is the big speed wobble. Of course, we saw it very dramatically and very publicly for Bagnaia and Ducati in the warm session at pre-Grand Prix in Australia last weekend. Now, this is something that he has been talking constantly about over the last few weeks. I think actually Pecco, in some respects, would have been fairly happy that he had that moment, a big wobble down the straight in Phillip Island, because it was like, well, there you go. That's the crystal clear proof of what I've been talking about for so many weeks. So yeah, another big head shake, another big speed wobble. Got the gas out of 14.
That was certainly an extreme version of it that we saw in Australia, because they had tried a rather experimental setup which did not bring the desired results for Pecco Bagnaia on that particular occasion. And amongst some of the instability here, he's quick. Third quickest at the moment on 1:58.6. Pedro Acosta looks to get his session finally up and running after a crash at turn 9 early on. Acosta just on the fringes of the top 10 now, just behind his fellow KTM colleague, Paul Espargaro.
He's had a couple of very early crashes in both sessions, hasn't he, Acosta? Just a little bit too aggressive before the tyres have got up to optimal working temperature. It's clearly an in-lap incoming for the 21-year-old. The happy memories, of course, of the Sepang International Circuit with Costa a couple of years ago in 2023. Second place saw him crown the youngest ever Moto2 World Champion. I don't think though, if you fast forward 2 years later, we'd be anticipating or thinking of a scenario where Costa was still to break his victory duck in MotoGP as more adjustments on the front end of Bagnaia's factory Ducati. I'm not sure really if there's any parts, components or setups that Ducati haven't tried to find a solution to Bagnaia's front end woes.
Every time he comes back in the pits, of course, we're focused in on it. You must imagine how it must feel if you're Christian Gavarini, Gigi Delinia or anyone on Pecco's side of the box when he sits down in his chair, you're hanging on his every word, just hoping that he says something positive about the Ducati that is riding the 2024 Aero spec on one of his factory Ducatis. Of course, there was only one of his factory Ducatis last weekend that really worked. One bike didn't behave, the other did.
See as well just how many laps he's put on that soft front tyre. That was a well-worn, particularly on the left-hand side, wasn't it? And you could see that he's getting a lot of information, a lot of data on that worn soft at front, because that was some pretty excessive wear on the left-hand side. Jack, back down to you.
Yeah, Bagnaia, we saw this morning, we spoke about the fact that he was doing those back-to-back testing for the it looks as though he's gone back to 24 for this afternoon, but clearly hasn't solved all of the issues, although, as you pointed out, Lewis, in the standings, I mean, Davide Carducci, I think it's referenced throughout the year that it comes to a point where the motorcycle isn't going to be perfect, and it's down to you, Pecco, just to go out there and do the business. He's third on the standings, so it's not a terrible state for the pair.
Third moment, thanks Jack. Third and just under 3/10. I'm Sermon Aldeguer, who has been flying so far here on day one in Sepang. Looking to rebound from a pretty miserable Phillip Island experience for Aldeguer after the highs and the incredible highs at Mandalika, where he became our second youngest ever MotoGP winner. To a rather frustrating and underwhelming Australian Grand Prix. Certainly his cause was not helped by an errant Ducati GP24, which at times didn't even know where it was around Phillip Island, as there was a few gremlins that seemed to have got in the electronic system for Aldeguer.
don't show that yet. He is still a little bit grumpy. Don't show him the fact that it is the GP24 that Bagnaia won on last year. But it's ahead of him, right at the very top in case of Ferdinand Aldeguer. Agura has put a new soft rear tyre on. This could be a good strategy, this, from Trackhouse. Agura into 10th place on a 1:59.109, even if that had pretty did look something like a rodeo bull experience through turns 13 and 14.
Yep, the glory, that was the flags that were waving proudly in Buriram last year when Agura crowned the Moto2 World Championship in 2024 birthday. That was for the Japanese rider, first Japanese rider to win a Grand Prix title since 2009. Bagnaia then heading out for another shift on the factory khaki, as it does look like, up into the piston, particularly out of the back of sort of turns 4, 5, 6 and 7. There are still a lot of very dark threatening clouds. Jack, have we got anything to worry about weather-wise?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I've got noticeably cooler. The wind has picked up. I can see that those grey clouds down towards turn 1, which is where all of the bad weather earlier today came from, are starting to grow larger and larger. We saw Bagnaia just go back out on track. That was on a very huge soft rear tyre. So I am surprised we're not seeing more riders out there trying to get some bank collapsing, because we saw this morning, when it arrives, that's it, it's game over. So a lot of these guys outside the top 10 could be worth just getting some bank collapsing nice and early, probably 10 minutes of
Thanks, Jack. Agura is certainly, that's his strategy, that's his policy right now. Once again, glancing at the weather radars, a lot of rain, it looks like, forecast for later on this evening in Sepang, which will certainly clear away a lot of the rubber that's been laid down in the afternoon sessions here in Sepang. We'll track them, Trackhouse's Agura as he drops anchor on the brakes into this tight multi-line entry. Turn 15, he's going to cut a late apex in. Here's Agura. Things are very close on the clouds. What's going on with the weather? Can you tell us what's happening a few miles further up the road?
Both in the Trackhouse and Freeze were sent out a moment ago for a run, but we've not seen anything by the from Raul Fernandez just yet. He's down in 14th place at a second off pace. Pedro Costa fans tell us exactly who they want to succeed this weekend, and they want to see a 19th different MotoGP winner on our full-time grid here in 2025, because it will not be lost on Pedro Costa that he's one of 4 remaining on our full-time grid who are still without one.
Andrea, you know, new Red Bull Ring, Al Crutchloper, no, and Maverick Vinales at Silverstone. And last time we had 3 different first-time winners in 3 successive Grand Prix. Long years ago now. No pressure, Pedro. Let's see who looks to follow. Ferdinand Aldeguer and Raul Fernandez, 2 fellow Spaniards who've beaten him to it. They've beaten him to the top step of the podium in MotoGP, which trusters will not sit well with the very ambitious and eager to get on with business Pedro Acosta in MotoGP. No way that he would have envisaged a scenario where he would have been coming to start number 39 in the Premier class, still winless. Here is Agura then, trying to cash in on that new soft rear tyre. Good lap actually, this being fired in by the Moto2 World Champion. Powered out of turn 11, through 12 we go. She just dropped down through this part of Sepang. Great corner is that left-hander of 12. Third gear there, 200 kilometers an hour when you tip it in. Through turn 14, second gear here now. Engage the rear ride-high device and hang on for dear life as you close up towards 300 kilometers an hour down this long back straight. Once again, another hard braking zone. Good overtaking opportunity this into the second gear, turn to 15. You drop down to about 65 kilometers an hour for that final corner on the circuit. Agura maybe picking up maybe 1 or 2 places here later on. In fact, he does. Right on the cue, 10th to 8th for Agura, a 1:59.37.
Agura now 8th ahead of Quartararo and Zarco, so the French pair at the bottom end of the top 10. Alex Rins, you can see here, is also going early on a brand new soft rear tyre as he safely negotiates number 9. Alex Rins on a very good run of form, it has to be said, with his best result last time out in Australia since he won the Grand Prix of the Americas in 2023. Although that Yamaha was snapping sideways as he tried to score up the speed.
Maragall on the left-hand side of your picture there briefly. That's rain's falling. Rain is falling. Now this could be huge. This game could be absolutely massive in terms of 2 places. Alex Rins might be right to the death here if this rain starts getting heavier. If it was like this morning when it really did start to bucket down, well, this will be last chance saloon in terms of a Q2 spot. At the moment, Aldeguer, Mia, Bagnaia, Gian Antonio, Marini, Alex Marquez, Bettesecchi, Agura. How crucial could Agura's early time attack be? 8th ahead of Quartararo and Zarco. Wins over the line then up to 5th place with a 158.691. How decisive could that be for the Spaniard?
I'm amazed more teams didn't do this. Surely they're all looking at the same weather radar that we are. Everyone's got the same availability down in pit lane, but it appears that only Trackhouse and the factory Yamaha team have been switched on to the potential danger here.
Yeah, a few teams have been caught cold here, aren't they? And it's not a given that this rain will get any worse, and there'll be a lot of teams and riders praying that it doesn't. Some riders now within a rain dance. Alex Rins won't care one iota if the heavens open early, having just finding that 58.691 that's got him up into 5th place. Augusto Fernandez powers the V4 powered M1 up into 19th. He's finally almost into the 1:59. Says Fabio Quartararo heads down circuit. He's in that danger zone in 10th place.
He cannot play any games here. He's got to get out there and get a lap time on the board. You see them making changes to be pretty effective. Secchi's got a little bit of margin of safety currently in 8th. If you're Fermi Aldeguer, Juan Mir, Pecco Bagnaia and company, then let it rain at this stage. You're more than safe at the top of the standings. The team are telling Pecco Bagnaia to come back in. One would assume that's because they want to get some soft rear tyres on it.
Well, Fermi Aldeguer, just like in FP1 this morning, he won't care. The sky chucks down a lot of precipitation because when it rained this morning, he was fastest, and that's exactly the scenario right now. Jack, is this rain going to get any heavy, do you think?
Well, there's nothing falling in pit lane at the moment. It's clearly over on the back part of the circuit. I've been closely looking at the visors and the screens of riders when they're coming in pit lane. There's any evidence, in fact, I'd say no evidence of any rain on either visors or on the screen. So whatever is falling is incredibly light at the moment. But obviously, it's in the area. It is coming. So these guys need to get out and get a lap sharpish.
Thanks, Jack. One who is making a big play for Q2 is Zarco. Brand new soft front, brand new soft rear. For the Frenchman, the 35-year-old who has great memories, of course, of Sepang, winning one of his Moto2 titles here all the way back in the day, and that famous double backflip with his brother. Zarco needs this lap. Oh, that was unsettled. That's how hard Zarco is pushing really, really hard. Rear tyre in the air as he grabbed a handful of brake going into the turn 7 and 8 complex, back down through the gearbox, wearing out the bottom of that left boot as well on the LCR Honda into turn 9. Wow, Zarco is all in here, isn't he? This is some lap being produced by the Frenchman. Really quick, really rapid through the first half of this current lap. Zarco just outside of that top 10 in 11.
Quartararo is just on an out lap at the moment. He's coming towards the final corner, so he's about to start his time lap, and when he starts it, he could be outside the top 10. He almost certainly will be outside of the top 10. Zarco could potentially get himself up in the top 3 here, and we know from Le Mans that one person who's got access to the best weather radars in the business is Lucio Cecchinello.
Second place incoming here for Zarco, unless he makes a right hash of this final sector and this final corner. What a lap it has been to follow Zarco. That Honda has looked anything but steady and stable underneath him. He is wringing the neck, isn't he, right now, at the RC213B. Is this second place for Zarco? Oh, the line going, it's better. It's even better. Well, he nailed the final sector, a 1:58.129. Pack a smile, Lucho. Come on, give us a smile. Go on, Zarco, who's just put the LC Honda into P1. Brilliant lap by Zarco.
Fabio Quartararo now needs to respond, and he is responding. Fastest first sector for the Frenchman, who's now down to 11th place, and it would then bump Agura back out. So Agura's strategy worked for the time being, but perhaps they went a minute or two too early down there at Trackhouse. Quartararo's now into the heart of turn 7 and 8.
Marini, Morbidelli, Savadori, Binder, Mia, Acosta, Espargaro, Gian Antonio, Bagnaia, Bettesecchi and Agura all still in the pits. We know Agura has already had one crack and a time attack. So a lot of those riders will be just waiting to venture out for their first attacks on soft tyres. Quartararo, when he was asking for a whole host of power on the follow coming out of turn 9, there was a big moment on the rear, wasn't there, for the Frenchman out of turn 9. We could very, very surely have a French 1-2 here in Sepang. Once down through 12 and 13 with this longer radius. Right-hander of 14. Now it's all about picking up the drive grip, getting on the fat part of the tyre and powering down this back straight. Quartararo at the moment, of course, to be deposing Zarco. 158.129 is his compatriot's benchmark right now, as begged for the factory Yamaha to stop going into turn 15, cuts that tight inside line, flips the inside curve out of 15. We go. Quartararo, surely it's a French one. There it is. Quartararo leads 158.113. He leads Zarco.
Quartararo, Zarco, Aldier, Mir, your top four. So Bagnaia now down to fifth. Rins' early flyer has now put in 7. Well, to Costa lead pit lane as Alex Marquez has dropped his Ducati at turn 2. Alex Marquez had just started his first flying lap on a soft rear tyre. He didn't make it very far.
Alex will now not lead way. He's already right on the cusp at the back end of that top 10 in 9th place is Alex Marquez.
One of the racing line there.
Yeah, he's got to be careful here. Turn 2. Little front end wash out as he's through that Gresini Ducati onto his left-hand side. We saw Costa go down in similar fashion right at the beginning of FP1 this morning. Just tap the power back in, hasn't he? Just for the throttle there. But that crucial, just taking that little bit of weight off the front end. He's been able to get the 73 Ducati going once again, although it looks like something's banging off the left side.
Anders could be while the iron's hot here. Alex Marquez 9th. To come back up pit lane and jump on his number 2 bike and try again on that one. When he does that, he might be out of the top 10 here. We've got Oliveira improving. He's up the road now into the final corner. This could be close for Bezzecchi, who's currently in 10th place. Bez is on an outlap, so he's about to start his first time attack of the afternoon. What can Oliveira do on the Pramac Yamaha? Only up into 13th place. 2 crashes on day 1 for Acosta, 2 crashes on day 1 now for Alex Marquez. We're riding on board with qualifying winner Raul Fernandez. Big lap this feels like it's coming in from Fernandez, and it is 16th to 5th. He jumps up 11 places on the standings, a 158.581 from Raul. But at the moment we've got once again one representative from Trackhouse MotoGP in Q2. Not too far behind in front place is Agura. You're back short, shifting through the gearbox. As you drop down through the spectacular turn 3, you've got to be really managing the right-hand side of that rear tyre over the full 20 laps here on Sunday. Braking it. The rise up then into turn 4. Oh, Andrea Dovizioso, who's describing turn 3 here at Sepang as his favourite corner on the entire calendar. It requires plenty of commitment and management of the throttle there as you're in 4th gear at around about 175 kilometres an hour.
Marquez at the moment is really in a spot of bother here. He's in that danger zone because he's been pushed back down to 10th. 2 clashes on day 1. Let's get a Gresini Ducati update from Jack.
Yeah, they're getting the number 2 bike prepared, but it's a nightmare 60 seconds because Fermin Aldeguer came straight down pit lane at the end of his as well, complaining to Frankie Carcetti of all kinds of instability on the front end of the bike, and as a result they're now prepping his number 2 machine as well.
Aldeguer getting the dose of the Bagnaia at the moment with an unstable front end on the Ducati GP24. Thanks once again, as always, Jack. Good match coming in here from Morbidelli and Antoine Mir. We're tracking the Gian Antonio and the Spargaro overline. Thomas Spargaro has pulled another rabbit out of the hat, hasn't he? The Vinales injury replacement of 58.546 from Felicio. And Morbidelli and Mir are creaming their current lap. Bezzecchi now up into P5. More rain is coming, and Morbidelli, oh, he was really wide. Really wide there, wasn't he? Going through that turn of 15. That really has mucked up Morbidelli's last lap. So everyone 16th to 8. Oh, he lost 3/10 of a second and a little bit more, didn't he there? Juan Mir, that's a little bit better, more cleaner through that final corner. Mir could be heading for P1 here. He's already in 4th place with a 158.408. Over the line Mir goes. He does improve but stays in P4.
So it's Rins and Marini who've now been turfed out of the top 10. And this could be a crucial 30 seconds in Pedro Acosta's Friday afternoon. He needs this lap badly at the moment. He's not projected to go into the top 10. It would be Digia that jumps out if Acosta can get this final sector right as the rain starts to ever so slightly intensify. So are these the final seconds, final moments where a Q2 place can be rescued for Pedro Acosta, the 37, out of the final corner, turn 15, he's aiming at a 1:58.6, it's a 58.5 for Acosta, who moves into 6th.
Yeah, and his teammate is in a whole world of pain. Brad Binder is nowhere. Binder is 23rd and last. Hasn't even done a 59 so far in this afternoon session. Brad Binder does not need any additional rain in this practice session in Malaysia. It's down in last place, 200.24. In behind a Yamaha wildcard Augusto Fernandez.
These more spots of rain on Marquez's Grassini Ducati. He has crashed at precisely the wrong moment in this session. He's now back to 14th place on a 58.8, and clearly his number 2 bike isn't immediately ready for him to jump back on. Bagnaia back up pit lane. He is just about safe at the moment in 10th, 38 thousandths ahead of Fabio Di Gianantonio.
Quartararo, having got in that early 158.113, still leads this session. It's a French 1-2 as it stands right now, ahead of Serbian Aldeguer. Jack, what's going on in what seems to be like ever-changing conditions down in pit lane?
Yeah, this light rain really starting to fall a lot heavier now, especially down the start-finish straight on the running towards turn 1. You might have seen a lot of guys losing time through that final sector, and that's because where the rain is at its heaviest. You've got to think with what 14 minutes remaining of this one, either the wind picks up, which it is pretty strong, and it blows through. Otherwise, this is the end of it with no one on track because conditions are worsening by the second.
Yeah, we saw, thanks Jack, we saw him with a big mistake in that final sector. By more upwards by some of those rain spots, or was it just Frankie absolutely on the ragged edge as she threatened P1 actually at that stage? Did Morbidelli. Still Quartararo in the box seats, a 158.113. It doesn't look like he's in any great hurry to get back out on circuit, does he? Fabio, as he conducts a debrief with Diego Gibellini, his crew chief.
Alex Marquez might force him back into a corner here to actually go out and take the risk. He did say going into this weekend that he might take a few more risks. Second in the World Championship is nearly secured. In fact, if he wins the sprint tomorrow afternoon, Alex Marquez will be assured of P2 in the World Championship. Well, he might have to ride in some very unfavourable conditions in just a moment. Here's the 73 if he is to book a place in qualifying 2.
Thank falls of silence. Every single rider now is back in pit lane. This could be the calm before the thunderstorm potentially here in Malaysia, as everybody, including myself and Lewis, are just glued with our eyes on the skies to see whether there is going to be any additional rain. Quartararo, Zarco, Aldeguer, Mir, Bezzecchi, Acosta, Spargaro, Fernandez, Morbidelli and Bagnaia in the top 10. And there is that rain. It is starting to fall heavier and heavier. As our top 10 already been decided? Is it locked and loaded?
Alex Marquez at the moment is standing there with the music having stopped, and there's 10 of the riders sat in chairs, and he's unfortunately not in one at the moment. Pecco Bagnaia, as you can see on your screens, is the rider at risk. He might just have dodged the mother of all bullets here this afternoon, Bagnaia, who I don't think was focusing on time attacks. He was just doing his Friday afternoon homework. The rain has arrived just in the nick of time for the 63.
What do we think, Jack? Are we going to get any? Or do you think, looking at current conditions in pit lane, that this might be game over?
The thing is, the rain is so light, it's like a light mist that's just sort of flowing across the start-finish straight, and with the track temperature being so red hot, I don't think it's going to be affecting pit levels, but it's the worst possible scenario for these riders. 10 minutes to go in a practice session, soft rear tyre on the back, rain on the visor, but they will be told by the teams, look, the track temp as it is, that rain is going to be evaporating as soon as it lands. You've got to go out and push. Truly is, as Jack Phil likes to say, disengage brain, close your eyes and just hope for the best.
Yeah, it feels like we could be coming up to Miller territory very, very soon. This is the reason why Alex Marquez is in a spot of bother as we head into the final 10 minutes of this practice session. Just heard Alex there just start to tap the power back in as he tried to get out and get a good exit through turn 2 to pick up some corner speed down through 3. So Quartararo, Zarco, Aldeguer, Mir, Bezzecchi, Acosta, Espargaro, Fernandez, Baul, the version of Morbidelli and Bagnaia. Why is that all doing rain dances right now inside their respective garages? Because they will be booking places into Q2 if this rain does it. Break from the rain. For the likes of the Gianantonio, Rins, Gianantonio and Rins. Fuji is flooding 400s outside of Q2 at the moment. Less than 400s behind the Italian is Rins. Not even a 10 splitting Rins and Marini. Less than 300s then covered Marini and Alex Marquez. Bit of a gap then back to Iagura. But the Gian Antonio, Rins, Marini and Marquez through the Q, well, not directly through the Q2, but certainly with a better shot than they stand right now.
Then as to Rins and to Agura, they did go for it. They did get a run in before this rain started to loom over the circuit. They recognised the danger that was coming our way and got a lap on the board. At the time, of course, he did put them inside the top 10. That has since changed as some other teams wised up to Gian Antonio, Marini and Miguel Oliveira. He did go again. Alex Marquez was just in the process. Only made it halfway around turn 2 before he took the front. He's now brightening up outside our commentary box window. The hills in the background starting to be surrounded by some pretty heavy cloud cover. We could see them pretty clearly off into the distance around 10 minutes ago. Now we can barely see it.
Aldeguer, some start to that practice session he was from the 54, a 58.279 on his third lap of the session. Is at the moment what's got him inside Q2 in third place. And we heard when he went out for his first time attack from Jack, he came straight back in on that fresh shot, probably reporting some stability issues with the front end of that GP24. So he'll be thanking his lucky stars at the moment that he was so fast straight out of the gate in this session. That 158.279 has not been bettered as yet by Aldeguer. The only other rider inside the top 10 hasn't clearly nailed a time attack as yet is Bagnaia. There's some rather tense and some anxious faces, nervy faces down in this Sepang pit lane at the moment. One of them being worn by the 73 of Alex. 7 this morning in FP1, a crash at turn 2 when he started his first time attack. Leaves Alex in a bit of a vulnerable 14th place at the moment.
They don't appear to be feeling the pressure down there at Cassini, do they? Or the strain of what's going on. Nadia Panavani over to the right-hand side there. Willie Marquez, father of Mark and Alex, also seems pretty chilled with what's going on, yet it's really brightened up on the main straight now. It's almost as if they're all waiting for someone else to go out there and try and sample the conditions first, but it's those outside the top 10 who can't afford to wait around.
Amazingly, the Gian Antonio leaving under a blaze of sunshine on the Pertamina Enduro VR46 racing bike. That might be where the sun is shining at its brightest, because for turns 5, 6, 7 and 8, and it's still very, very dark indeed. As we ride on board with Alex Marquez as he looks towards the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, it's a pretty pleasant view, but when he goes through turns 1 and 2 and starts heading the opposite way, he'll be thinking, please God, don't rain.
Rainbow over to the distance now, out at turns 7 and 8. Well, the pot of gold at the end of it is a place in qualifying 2. At the moment, the 10 riders occupying those places: Quartararo, Zarco, Aldeguer, Mir, Bezzecchi, Acosta, Paul Espargaro, Raul Fernandez, Frankie Morbidelli and Pecco Bagnaia. No great surprise to see that Fabio Di Gianantonio was keen to get on with it. He's down in 11th place. Frankie Morbidelli there just snuck in the 9th fastest time before the rain started to fall, but he is far from second.
On this outlap, 6.5 minutes of the session remaining. Well, you're going to get 2 flying laps, aren't you, in a crack at Q2. One that needs a big lap is Alex Marquez. A couple of years ago, of course, in Sepang, he was the sprint winner on an excellent weekend for Alex. He was second in the main Grand Prix as well. Second place here 6 years ago in 2019, the best days of Alex's career, when that secured him the riders peel out of pit lane. It certainly needs a big 5 minutes, 6 minutes or so. Still stuck down in through that tricky, tight, gnarly second corner. Already caught out Acosta and Alex on day 1 here in Malaysia.
Then he knows how gnarly that corner can be from the Grand Prix here last year. He was involved in that rider collision with Fabio Quartararo and Jack Miller. Here is El Diablo, who's perhaps got the least to lose at the moment, given that he was up in P1 on a 158.113. The temperature, as Jack mentioned, has enabled that rain just to evaporate away, but understandably, we'll blame Alex Marquez if he displays a little bit of caution, particularly on this first lap, knowing that he's perhaps got a couple more to come after this.
Alex was really keen to get out on circuit, get on with business. Can't leave anything to chance now. It's now or never for the 73. Listen to wind up through the great shot, wasn't it? There was Alex Chin on the tank. You can see his brakes have popped out the bubble as well there. His neck muscles getting a real pounding as he squeezed the brake for that first corner. This time around he does negotiate. Tricky turn 2.
The second off, probably Gian Antonio was slightly more cautious through that first sector as he explored the conditions as the first rider on the road. Don't expect Jack Miller to be leaving much on the table in his final run. We've seen wetter conditions than this with Jack Miller on slick tyres, and he still rolled the dice.
Fast as he needs to be. Through sector 1 is Alex. Let's check his progress now in sector 2. Attacks hard into turn 7. So he got caught out this morning. Few spots of rain there on our. Allow this by Alex. This will be a Q2 lap at this late phase of the session. He drops that left leg. Bit of chatter on the front end on that Ducati GP24. And he flung it left through turn 9. 14 potentially to P5. Alex trying to 40 should book a place in Q2.
And he's finally getting up to speed. He's just moved first sector. Marini and Acosta also setting red sector times elsewhere on the lap. So Pecco Bagnaia, who's currently just starting a flying lap, is about to be dumped out of the top 10. Alex Marquez still in touch as he now makes his way onto the back straight. He's just got turn 15 to go.
One corner left on this current lap for Alex Marquez. This would be some salvage job by Alex, having crashed on his first time attack. In that second corner, Pedro Acosta, another rider. I like Alex, who's been on the floor twice on day 1. Putting together a good late charge on the factory KTM. Over the line, though, we'll track Alex up into P3. A 158.183 from Alex. Surely that has got him through into Q2. What about Acosta, though, now, as he powers down this long back straight? Well, Acosta, this is a heck of a lap by Acosta. An awesome lap by Acosta. He started this practice session on the floor with a crash through turn 9. He might be finishing with the fastest time of day 1 here in Sepang. We track Acosta out of final corner. Yellow flags out in sector 3. Over line Acosta goes. It's the first 57 of day 1 here in Sepang. A 157.559. Morbidelli goes up in a second place on the Ducati GP24. But Pedro Acosta, with an absolutely sensational lap here, goes top as Augusto Fernandez it was that crashed at turn 9.
We've got Marini and Paul Espargaro also on very fast laps. Bagnaia's on a personal best, but I'm not convinced he's going to move him too far up the top 10 as he comes towards the line. Watch Marini then, there's a big gap to slot into between Acosta and Morbidelli. Marini only goes into 7th place. Paul Espargaro goes into 3rd. It's KTM 1 and 3.
And the rider who's been fastest on our last 3 Fridays, Marco Bezzecchi on the factory Aprilia, at the moment out of Q2 directly. Bagnaia's just put in his best time in the session, a 158.348. It's close to top 10, but not close enough. And Sarko and now an Alex look to find low 157s here. This is brilliant by Zarco. We saw how hard he was pushing at LCR Honda a couple of moments ago to find that 58.129. Zarco threatening a big upset here. If he can put the LCR Honda into P1. Look once again how hard he is pushing that front tyre on the RC213V. Out of the final corner for the move on the rear tyre there as he grabbed a handful of throttle. Zarco to the finish line. Mia goes up briefly the second. 2 Hondas now inside the top 3. Although that's just changing me. Jack Miller goes up into 3rd place. Alex Marquez up to P7.
I'm pretty sure with the time that's remaining that this is going to be Bagnaia's last lap of the session. There were less than 2 minutes remaining when he went across the line, but I don't think he's going to get to the line for one more. So this is all on this final lap for Pecco Bagnaia. Red sector times from Marini, from Quartararo, from Joan Mir, from Fermin Aldeguer too. Aldeguer from topping most of the day. He's now out of the top 10.
Bezzecchi needs a big lap. He's backwards up against the wall right now. Isn't the factory Aprilia rider has been relegated down to a 14th place, a 58.3. The best from Bez, which at the moment has got him over 8/10 of a second behind Acosta. Bagnaia then down through the high-speed left-hander of turn 12. A rapid rate of knots through there at about 200 kilometres an hour. This is going to be pretty close. Bagnaia has got no margin for error, has he, at all in this final section? But look at that estimated P11 from the Italian. What about Alex Marquez?
Yeah, doesn't make it.
Aldeguer's out as well. I mean, fastest in FP1 this morning. Again.
Bez doesn't make it either. He's 14th, 58.3. So Marco Bezzecchi won't be going through. Neither will Fermin Aldeguer. Can Pecco Bagnaia dodge a bullet in this final lap of the session? The finish line is coming up. He needs to be in the 57s, really. Bagnaia doesn't make it.
Aldeguer and Bezzecchi did make it over the line, though, for one more lap in this session. They need it. Aldeguer 13th, Bezzecchi 14th. That wasn't their form, but was it at all coming into this Malaysian Grand Prix? Agura, well, his session is over. He's taken the checkered flag. Agura won't be in the Q2. A whole bunch of red helmets lighting back on the screens here. Quartararo up to 5th. A 157.868. Surely that's enough. 4 Japanese bikes right now in the top 5. Zarco 2nd, Miller 3rd, Mia 4th, Quartararo 5th.
Bezzecchi's not making it. He's a second down at the first sector. Alex Rins has gone down 2 at the end of the session, but Marco Bezzecchi will not be going through to qualifying 2 as we see Morbidelli going across line to Gian Antonio takes 6th, which puts Rins on the bubble. Are the yellow flags going to save the 42?
Rins crashing out after just set the fastest first sector of the session. That looks like it was a painful one for Rins, so he's going to be, at the moment, when he's in 10th place, isn't he going to be able to salvage that Q2 spot? It's all eyes on Aldeguer, who got over the line with about 10 seconds of this session remaining. What a dramatic finish this has been. We're getting sore next year, aren't we? The amount of time we spent looking skywards to see whether those dark clouds are going to throw out any more rain. Aldeguer then, I'll tell you what, he loses the whole chunk behind, doesn't he, in sector 3. It was Aldeguer. That's where he's going to have to really polish his act overnight. Sector 3, clearly, Aldeguer struggling. Morbidelli 7th with a 58.041. We're going to track Aldeguer then. Mandalika Grand Prix winner as he approaches the checkered flag at the end of this session. Is he in Q2? On the line he goes. No, he is not. A lap gone for Marco Bezzecchi. Wow, Bagnaia, Aldeguer and Bezzecchi. Three riders have been at times in tip-top form on our overseas sequence are in Q1.
Last weekend's winner, Ralph Fernandez, is also in Q1. He's 16th. Marini was bumped out in 11th place. He managed to find a 58.1, but that wasn't enough. KTM loving life today, aren't they? With Acosta quickest. Hollis Spargo also through in 8th place. Boys, it's been a day of extremes for Pedro Acosta. A crash in either session, but he ends it on top.
The last 2 years here in Sepang, Ducati have locked out the top 6 places on the grid. Best Ducati at the end of that practice session is Fabio de Gian Antonio, down in 6th place. We have a KTM leading the way with the absolutely superb Pedro Acosta, and then it's a Honda, a Yamaha, a Honda, and another Yamaha. 4 Japanese bikes in the top 5 at the end of practice Friday at MotoGP. Now that has happened seldom a few times over the last few years or so. 57.559, absolutely brilliant by Acosta. Zarco, Miller, Mir and Quartararo also find 57s. No Ducati.
Things for around 10 minutes, but pointed it sets up a grandstand finish. So that practice session was fascinating to speak to the riders to understand just what went on in those final 5 minutes. Were some prepared to take more risks than others? Did some bikes just work better than others in those final few minutes of the session? Because the field was turned on its head from the likes of Aldeguer and Bagnaia, who were up in the top 2 for most of the day. Both of them turfed out of the top 10 in the end, and it is a heavyweight qualifying one coming up with the last 3 Grand Prix winners all in it.
Now three are inside the top 10. Agura there, best runner on day 1 here in 4th place. That was a great job. Some late lap that by Miller. No wonder he's got a big smile on his face. Straight to Q2 then. Pedro Acosta on the KTM. John Zarco on the Honda. Miller on the Yamaha. Mir on the Honda. Quartararo on the Yamaha. Fabio de Gian Antonio, the lead Ducati in 6th place. Just 3 Ducatis inside the top 10 at the end of day 1 here. Alex Marquez with a pretty good rescue. 2 KTMs as Miguel Oliveira's had some late drama on the second of the Prima Pramac Yamahas. Do you know what? Pedro Acosta is some talent. He is some rider, isn't he? 2 crashes on day one. But he ends it in P1. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Akiyaya.
As he rolls into pit lane now, Aki, is that an indicator of how competitive Pedro can be this weekend, or how big his balls are?
Let's see, it's a bit too early to say, but of course, impressive lap, and also, let's say that more happy about the pace what he found quite quickly. That morning was a little bit for nothing, let's say, so everyone starts from the zero in the afternoon, and impressive how quick he can find pace that he was doing quite constantly. Lap time, of course, the fitness lap was really impressive. I'm happy for the work, and now it's time to focus to find the pace, of course, for race, and we need to still do quite well. Great job, well done. Thanks a lot.
Phenomenal job. Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Akiyaya. Pedro Acosta led right at the start of this day one in Sepang after he had first-time winners for Fermin Aldeguer and Ralph Fernandez now last two Grand Prix. It was over to Pedro Acosta to try and keep this incredible sequence going. What a start it has been. Two crashes early on here.
Some money to the marshal there, who gave him some help at turn 2 earlier in the day.
Some lap, what a lap by Acosta. He was tight to the top. You have to give credit as well to Zarco on the LCR Honda machine. He wasn't even 200ths down. Oh. Whatever you're doing tomorrow, wherever you're watching in the world, make sure you tune in for Q1, because it will feature Bagnaia, Aldeguer, Bezzecchi, Ralph Fernandez. There's a bit of a late rally from Brad Binder, who spent the majority of that practice session marooned down in last place. Binder did claw his way back up into 17th with a 158.739. Somebody who is going to be breathing a almighty sigh of relief right now is Alex Rins, because that 158.117 got Alex into Q2, and that's a real heavy one. You could see Alex was wincing as he walked away from that crash down the hill into turn 5. The left-hander, big old get off that. I mean, you're up to 190 kilometers an hour when you tip into that corner.
Flexing his muscles and showing us the scars on his right arm there was Alex Rins. Falls well, that ends well. I get. Esper, tears from those who were caught up by the conditions today, and this was Pecco Bagnaia. I believe this is when he completed the session and once again demonstrated his frustration at recognising that he was outside the top 10. He's having a little look over to the left there. He's checking out the screen to see where he ends up the session. He's not going to like the news that he sees.
Fine margins, the finest of margins. Bagnaia 12th. It sounds like a bit of a disaster, doesn't it? It is really not to be in Q1, but when you look at the lap times and reflect on how close he was, well, he wasn't even 900ths of a second away from a place inside that top 10. Really he's then inside the top 10. Here's Ralph Fernandez. This is, well, that was Ralph Fernandez just moving through your picture before another Fernandez. He's tasting some tarmac reluctantly here in Sepang. It's Augusto Fernandez. Pips off of the V4 powered Wiser RM1. 59.9 was the best from Augusto in that session. And Bastianini, a former Sepang MotoGP winner, of course, when he was on top of the Ducati. A great day once again in time attacks for the Beast. Down in 19th place for the 158.953. He was almost 1.4 seconds away. Top Ducati, just as he was in the Australian Grand Prix last weekend, is Fabio Di Gianantonio. But as I mentioned, the last two Grand Prix here in Sepang, top 6 place on the grid have been all Ducatis. Just one of them inside the top 6 this afternoon, as we get to see fantastic Friday as far as the Japanese brands are concerned. 4 of the last 7 Grand Prix, Bagnaia has not been able to negotiate his way directly into Q2. Not reading as far as the 63 is concerned, unfortunately, on day one here in Malaysia.
Pedro Acosta, despite crashing twice today, does end as the fastest rider in a hugely dramatic close to practice. Acosta ahead of Johan Zarco. Jack Miller ensures that Yamaha have 2 bikes in the top 5, with Fabio Quartararo just behind Joan Mir. Fabio Di Gianantonio first Ducati, PR46 6th and 7th with Morbidelli next up. Paul Espargaro once again straight to Q2 in 8th ahead of Alex Marquez, who just snuck in 9th, and Alex Rins despite his late fall 10th. So a heavyweight Q1 involving Marini, Bagnaia, Aldeguer, Agura, Bezzecchi, Raul Fernandez as the winners of the last 3 Grand Prix all go into Q1. Binder rescued 17th but not enough for the top 10. Oliveira, Bastianini and Chantra next up ahead of Salvadori Pirro and Augusto Fernandez.
Yamaha's inside the top 10, Q1's inside the top 4. Pedro Acosta leading the way with a 157.559. Yeah, 200ths of a second clear. Johan Zarco in second place. There was no time set in run 1 because he was on the floor with a crash at turn 9. When he got down to business, well, he was very, very fast indeed, wasn't he? Have a good look. Some worn soft tyres. Good race pace by Acosta, and then he was out of fresh rubber, new fresh rear tyre. 57.559 saves day 1 for Pedro.
Johan Zarco definitely brought the action. As you can see on run 3, he was one of the first to really go for it on a soft tyre when the rain was approaching. That 58.1 got him momentarily to the top 10, but he needed a 57 to book his place, and 57.5 did the trick.
Jack Miller on course potentially for back-to-back front rows in MotoGP for the first time on the Prima Pramac Yamaha. Miller doing a lot of work in the high 59s on worn soft rubber, and he was on a fresh soft rear tyre. Soft front of 57.840. Top 3 once again for Thriller Miller.
2 Yamahas in the top 5 and 2 Hondas, with Joan Mir ensuring that he ends both sessions today inside the top 4. He was also doing his work on soft rubber, putting around about half reach distance on soft tyres at the start of the session, but he needed a 57.8 at the end of the session on a brand new soft rear tyre to take 4th place.
And our split time around this 5.5 on the Spank circuit. Joan Mir by a thousandth of a second with his factory Honda teammate Luca Marini, just a whisker ahead of Acosta in 3rd.
Honda also top in the 2nd sector. Johan Zarco ahead of his compatriot Fabio Quartararo.
Morbidelli motoring on in sector 3 at half a tenth clear of Acosta and Zarco.
Pedro Acosta destroying the final sector with nearly a 10th in hand over Mir and 2 tenths over the rest of the field.
Well, just as we hoped it would be, that was a rather spectacular start, wasn't it, to 25th edition of the MotoGP battle here in Sepang. And despite